So I'm just going to go through some of these example problems and see if it helps. So the first thing I want to talk about is squares and square roots. So 2 squared is equal to 2 times 2, which is equal to 4. And 3 squared is equal to 3 times 3, which is equal to 9. So this is pretty easy. I think the thing that confuses kids is what I'm about to do after this. So I'm squaring. There's a reason why we call it squaring, because back in the day, mathematicians, when they did their math, they didn't have numbers. They literally had to draw out 5 by 5 plots to figure out that 5 times 5 equals 25. So they call it squaring. In other words, if I wanted to know what 3 by 3 was, I would take and draw a straight line, and I would say 1, 2, 3, 4. Like if I wanted to do 4 times 1, 2, 3, right? So this would be like 4 times, well, I should probably do it since we're talking about squaring. I should probably make it 4 times 4. So they would just go like this. So this would be like 4 times 4. And then they would just draw these lines like this, and then they would count the boxes. That's why it's called squaring, because you're literally drawing a square. So to find out what 4 times 4 was, and this is how they multiplied anything, but when you multiplied a number by itself, it always made a square. So that's why they call it squaring. Now, what's interesting about that is a thing called square roots. So square roots undoes the squaring. In other words, 4, the square root of 4 is equal to plus or minus 2. The square root of 9 is equal to plus or minus 3. The square root of 16 is equal to plus or minus 4. You might say, well, why are you doing the plus or minus? Remember that if I say negative 4 times negative 4, a negative times a negative is a positive, and 4 times 4 is 16. So when I take the square root of a positive 16, I could have 2 solutions. Plus 4, in other words, positive 4 times positive 4, or negative 4 times negative 4. So a lot of times, because one is a square root, kids get that confused with the square. So this is what we call a square root. And then over here, this is what we call squares, right? This is a square. So we would say 6 squared. And kids don't pay attention. They're actually 2 different terms, right? These are squares, and these are square roots. Does that make sense?